All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. I'm your host, AJ Armstrong. You can go to aaronjarmstrong.com to follow me and follow this podcast as well. But today we had an incredible guest. It's really short. It's a really short, powerful episode we had with a man that really needs no introduction. John Lee Dumas is an entrepreneur. He's the founder of Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast. This is a very popular podcast platform, and John Lee Dumas he's networked with people all over the country. Some notorious names: Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Amy Porterfield, Lewis Howes. All of these are people that he has bumped into in his circle of networks. He's been featured on Forbes magazine, Inc., Success magazine, Harvard Business Review, you name it. He is all over the place. What I really love about John is he is 100% transparent. If you go on his website, eofire.com, he actually shares how you can, the monetization of his podcast and of his business, and he shows the income statements and everything. He's all 100% real. So this guy was awesome, provided tons of value to you guys. It's a really quick episode, but it is worth every single minute. So I encourage you guys to jump on, check it out, and without any further ado, welcome to the show.
Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews, the only show that's going to teach you how to be somebody.
Where in your life did you learn that you're not good enough?
Take what you're most passionate about and what you're most fearful of, and what is the plan to overcome that fear, and what is the plan to enact that passion.
Booyah!
What's going on, man?
You know, Puerto Rico's sun is shining, our birds are singing, life is good.
Yeah, awesome picture you got with Tony Robbins there right off the bat to kick this thing off.
It's me and Tony hanging out, you know, that's how it is.
Down in Puerto Rico, man, that's got to be nice.
4 years now, it's paradise.
Oh my gosh, man. Well, I'm jealous. It's raining up here, but it's still warm, so that's good.
We need some rain. Send it down. Come on, break it down,
brother. Well, hey, we got a limited show today, so I wanted to really dig into the good stuff with you because you know you are the master of really the podcast world and many other things as an entrepreneur, and really inspiring the people you've connected with and a lot of things you've done. But you know, I got to ask you. You know, we've had this show, got about 111 podcasts, and this can be 112. When you get to that point, right, that plateau, how do you just jack it up a level and get those downloads rolling and help kind of keeping it moving, right? So how do you get through that plateau as a podcaster and keep the downloads going? Because it's all about downloads these days, it seems like, man. So what's your thoughts?
The podcast host, number one, doesn't need to focus on downloads because although it is all about downloads for most people, those are usually the podcasts that end up fading because they're focusing on the wrong things. You need to be focused as a podcast host on curiosity. What makes you curious as a podcast host, and how can you keep digging and rooting around in that curiosity? Because when you're curious, you're going to ask interesting questions. And when you ask interesting questions, you're going to get fascinating answers. And when you get fascinating answers, you're going to get listeners that really love consuming your content. And so that curiosity is key. Keeping your finger on the pulse with those listeners that you have, like not just having these vanity metrics and even calling them downloads. Like I don't even like when people use that phrase. It's like, these are listeners. These are people that are human beings that are listening to your podcast. Picture their faces. Like these are humans that are consuming your content that decided to press play. What are their thoughts, their hopes, their fears, their desires? And the question that I love asking to them is, what's your biggest struggle? Like, what is your biggest struggle as my podcast listener? And then how can I provide a solution to that struggle? Maybe it's by creating a course or a community or a product or a service, or maybe it's recommending somebody else's course or product or service as a JV, as an affiliate. So I think curiosity is huge. I think engaging with the listeners that you do have is huge. I think not focusing on the word download or your downloads at all is huge. Like that's where your mindset needs to be.
Yeah, I love that too. Cause you know, we've got a small team here and it seems like that comes up so much around downloads, but then when, you know, objectively you're looking at the results and you're like, okay, we've been kind of stuck at this position. And I'm kind of thinking along the lines you're thinking, right? Like, well, I like to satisfy my curiosity, but then you added an interesting point, which is like, what are they really looking for? What are these listeners really interested in? Is it so much about, you know, as I'm on this journey of entrepreneurship, trying to build my business and I get stuck in these different positions, is that equally relevant to them? You know what I mean? And I kind of get stuck in this position sometimes where it's like, well, here I am on my journey of curiosity, and I'm investigating all these people like you who are just, at kind of this whole new level of success. And it's like, is that still relevant to my listeners too? You know what I mean? So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. So I guess the question out of that is, where do you find the most success and that balance between thinking about what your listeners want to hear versus thinking about you being authentic as a host?
Well, let me answer that question with a question, because I think you do bring up some good points. And, as a podcast host, you're running into a lot of the challenges, questions, and struggles that every podcast host does for all times. What are you guys doing to increase your listenership?
Well, one thing we've thought about doing is increasing the quality of guests was one, right? So that's one option. The second one was I wanted to kind of make it more authentic and more raw in what I value and what I feel. So I wanted to ask the same questions and bring people along for a personal journey in a way. And I think that the older episodes resonate with a newer entrepreneur, and some of these recent episodes resonate more with maybe someone in the same boat as me. So it's kind of like being 2 steps ahead of people and providing mentorship in that way. So that's kind of what we've been doing. We've also looked at streaming more and just kind of broadcasting different channels. So it's like those have been the 3, I'd say, strategies we've had. And you can tell me if they're good or bad, because that's why you're on the show and that's why you're the expert.
So I can tell you're probably not part of Podcaster's Paradise, because your growth strategies are very limited, and they are correct as far as everything you shared, because it's important to do one thing, which is become a better podcast host. Host your actual skills and abilities as that podcast host. Become better, make a better show, have better guests, or make your guests better that you have on because of being a better podcast host, which is all going to make for a better end product, which is then going to have your listeners want to listen more and stay subscribed and recommend the show to others. So that single strategy, because you mentioned a few things, but they're all the same thing, which is just, try to make a better show, is a strategy that everybody needs to be employing. But, why do we think we live in this world of Kevin Costner's Field of Dreams, where if we build it, they will come? And guess what? You need to focus on making a better show, which we've gone through now. We've beaten that with a dead horse. But now what are you doing outbound to actually get in front of other podcast listeners who are out there in the zillions and bringing them back to your show? And that's not going and making some silly post on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, because those people are on those platforms for those platforms. So let me ask you, how many podcasts have you been a guest on in the past 3 months?
Probably like 5 or 6, really. And I think
I
you're
am
right.
on 20 today. Today, I could share my screen right now. You would see 20 podcast episodes that I am a guest on today. And I do this every single month, because guess what? Podcast listeners listen to podcasts. So what do? I convert the converted. I don't try to go out and say, hey, Facebooker, I know you're here to, see what stupid thing Donald Trump said today, but I want you to come off of this platform to come listen to this thing called a podcast you may never have heard of before. And I might not even be talking about a topic that you even are relevant about, or it's even interesting to you, blah, blah, blah. You don't even have a podcast app, but you can download, all that stuff. Or you could say, hey, I'm on a podcast right now. And maybe this podcast has 50 listens. Maybe it has 500 listens per episode, whatever number it is. I don't actually care. Did I ask you how many listeners you have? No, because I don't qualify that way. I say, I want to be on this show so that I can share whatever knowledge and value that I can with your audience, because they love you, they know you, they like you, they trust you. That's why they're listening to you right now. And the average podcast listener listens to 7 podcasts. So I want to become one of their 7. I'm hoping that your listeners subscribe to Entrepreneurs on Fire and listen to my podcast. And so you need to put in the work. You need to get your team on it and getting you in front of hundreds of other potential podcasts to be a guest on, so that you can start converting the converted, and so that you can start speaking to people who are already podcast listeners, who are already listening to a podcast, who have the app, who like it, who already have it as part of their day, and encourage them as a call to action at the end of the show. Hey, I have a podcast too, by the way. If you want to hear more of this type of content, come check me out.
Yeah, you provided really insightful and helpful tips. I think you implied too one of them, which is when I go to look for these other podcasts, right? Finding something that's in an area that I can truly help them with. So you're looking, probably in niches of entrepreneurship.
I did imply
or startup.
that.
Yeah. So then what's the second piece to that? So you kind of find these podcasts that are relevant in the niche, but what's your approach for just getting on all these different shows? Is there a system? Is there a tactic, or is it just rise and grind, chug away at?
There's absolutely a tactic. So I would, for instance, go to a platform like Apple Podcasts, and I would go to the business section within there, and I would click on top 200, and it would list out the top 200 podcasts. Then I would one by one go through each podcast that interviews other people, and I would study their podcast, and I would say, this is the last 10 episodes. These are the last 10 topics that they've discussed. I would listen in full to one of those episodes to get a great vibe for the show. Then I would, right under the logo, look at the word website. I would click on that button website. It would take me to their website. Once I'm on their website, I would look at the contact. I would look at the nav bar, and I would click on the word contact to bring me to their contact form. Then I would fill out an email that would say something along the lines of, so-and-so, I really enjoyed your podcast. I just listened to episode XYZ that you talked about this. This was my biggest takeaway from it. I noticed your last 10 episodes, you talked about these topics. By the way, I would love to bring a new and unique topic that you even talked about recently to your show as a podcast guest. And by the way, I'm a podcaster myself, so I'd love to have you as a guest on my show. So maybe we could just book an hour. First 30 minutes, you can interview me on this topic. Here's a recommended title. Here's some recommended bullet points. I want to make this super easy for you. And then I could have you on my show to talk about your area of expertise. And then when the show goes live, being a podcaster, I know how valuable it is to share this interview with my listeners and with my audience. So you can count on me doing that. And oh, by the way, no matter what this ends up being, if you want to have me on or not, I just want to say thank you for what you do, for putting value in the world. Here's a screenshot of a 5-star review I left for your podcast. Thank you so much for considering this. Have a great day. And guess what? I've interviewed 2,600 entrepreneurs to date. I have never gotten a pitch that is as good as I just shared right there. Never.
It's a great pitch because you're giving so much value just with that review, right? It's just something that's a differentiator, because that you got to go out of your way to leave a review. And it's something that I think every podcast host really appreciates. So you're kind of doing that reciprocity in that way. You're showing them so much value up front.
Reciprocity. It's real.
It is. And I think but the hard part is coming up with, well, what is valuable to them? And what you just did was share exactly that, a review. That could be something.
And guess what? Nobody's going to do what I just said because they're not willing to put in that kind of work. But I did. And that's where it got me to where I am today. Yeah,
you're dropping some Gary V language right there, who's also in your network of friends.
Gary V is dropping my language, by the
way. Well, that brings me to kind of one of my last questions for you too. Is kind of who's been, one of the most inspirational people you've kind of met since you've been on this.
I mean, in all seriousness, I was kind of joking about Gary V because, obviously he's crushing it on every level. But he has been a person that I continue to consume his content because he essentially says the exact same thing every single time, but he calls himself out on it. And he's like, I only know 4 things and I just keep repeating them. I don't know why you guys keep listening to me, but I do because I just find him entertaining and comical. And I think that he's super transparent and honest, and he just drops truth bombs left and right. And I think he's one of the most misunderstood people. Everybody's like, oh, Gary V, he just thinks you should hustle, grind. And that's not at all what he ever says. He's like, I hustle and grind because I love it. You, if you want, should live in Montana in the woods and make $67,000 a year, working 7 hours a week, doing something that you love doing. That's what you need to be. So I love his content for that reason. He really just, to me, just spits truth. And, that's what I try to do, with our income reports, like being open and honest and transparent and showing people like, hey, this is how much money we make. This is how we made it. But this is how much money we stupidly essentially lost or spent this month because, we made these mistakes. And here's my CPA to validate this income, but also to leave a tax tip. And here's my lawyer, to give a legal tip. And this is what I want to be valuable and open and transparent about.
Yeah, there's two things with that, just to follow up. I have checked out your website, and it's awesome what you do. You show exactly how much money you're making on exactly what, and it's incredible, and it shows your revenue every month and your income statement right there. And so I encourage people to go check it out too if you guys want to take a look. The second thing is I'm kind of Gary V, right? I love consuming Gary V's content. I love it. It's motivating. It's awesome. But there comes a point I've noticed where, like, if I'm hustling, sometimes I'm running around in a circle and trying to run my head through the wall of something that might not really work. And then you kind of look at someone like Tim Ferriss, who might throw out like a work smarter, not harder kind of thing. And it's kind of, what is your thought on that? Or do you have any, framework to look at when if something's just not working, stop hustling and stop wasting your time? Or is it like, just run your head through the wall till it works?
I mean, I just think there's multiple ways to look at that. And I don't think there's one specific right answer, because like I ran my head through a wall to get Entrepreneurs on Fire to work, because like it wasn't working at first, because nothing works at first. You've got to just like commit and grind. And it was, 13 months before I made any money. And, it was just like so tough. And I wasn't good at any part of it. I wasn't a good podcaster. I wasn't a good online entrepreneur. I wasn't a good marketer. Like I was good at nothing. And so it was all tough and difficult and challenging. But, once I got over that hump, then I flipped the script. And now like I literally, say no to basically everything. Like I don't say no to interviews like this, because this is an unbelievably valuable use of my time to commit one day a month to be on 20 other podcasts. So I'll keep doing that. But like I say no to like almost everything. And it's like, that's, one of the things that I didn't do at all when I started, because I didn't have that luxury. I said yes to everything because frankly, nobody was asking me anything anyways, because they could care less. So, there's just like stages and different seasons in your entrepreneurial journey. There's going to be a season when you're saying yes to everything and running through walls. And then there's a season, hopefully, when you get over the hump and you succeed, where you essentially say no to almost everything. And people would be shocked like at how little I work, because that's a personal decision of mine. Like I don't have a goal to run an 800-person advertising agency in New York City like Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't want anything to do with that. That would be a nightmare for me. I go to that pool every single day by 3 p.m. and I'm hanging out with my dog and my girlfriend, and we're just chilling, living the Puerto Rican island Caribbean lifestyle vibe. And like, that's what I want to do. So like, I'll have one day or at most 2 days per week where I just grind like today. But then the other 5 or 6 days of the week, I'm essentially almost doing, next to nothing. I'm like emails and social media, and like working on, my book that I'm writing right now. But, it's very low bandwidth. But so that's the season that I'm in right now. So things, it's not like black or white. It's not like always going to be one way or always going to be the other way. It's like, it's an evolution.
Yeah, I'm with you. You sprint on and off, right? And that's kind of,
I definitely go through sprints.
Yeah, you guys can tell. 20 podcasts a day, man. That's a sprint for sure. But, well, hey, I know we're running up on time, and you've been absolutely incredible to us.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to give you a chance to, where can people go to reach out, connect with you, or anything else you're looking
So if you want to check out those income reports that you mentioned earlier, it's eofire.com. And that's a place where we have a lot of great free value. We have free courses on podcasting, your big idea, coming up with a funnel that converts. And then, of course, I would love if you checked out my podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Which is an awesome podcast, guys.
Thanks,
so I
Aaron.
encourage you guys to go subscribe. And, well, John, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot of other podcasts to rock out probably today. But, hey, this was an absolute pleasure.
Awesome,
and thank
man.
you so much for coming on today.
Good vibe. Take care, brother.
See you, brother.